Welcome to the new and improved Fearless Football Forecast. Ronnie Woodward, your usual host, is out of town this week, so filling in for him. Well, not really filling in. We're the usual stooges.
Yeah.
But, I'm Jim Gentry, sports editor of the Daily Reflector. With me, as always, Tony Castleberry, one of our sports writers. Tony, playoff football is here.
It is.
So we're just going to jump right into it. First game we're going to talk about, the one home game this week, East Carteret at Ayden-Grifton.
Yeah, Ayden-Grifton is a team, obviously, that's really rolling right now. 9-1, that running game is pretty much unstoppable. They proved that in a win over a good Goldsboro team last week. Goldsboro had kind of been the team that they couldn't get over that hump at the end of the season. They had met for the conference championship, I think 2 or 3 years in a row, and Goldsboro always seemed to trip them up. Didn't happen last week. Goldsboro won. They beat Goldsboro 42-18 last week. Pretty easy win. I think they'll roll in this game. I think they don't have any problem against East Carteret.
Yeah, I think it's hard to pick against Ayden-Grifton. East Carteret's 2-8, by the way. I mean, that's a 2-8 team in the playoffs.
I know.
While Ayden-Grifton's 9-1. I think that was a statement game for Ayden-Grifton last week. I mean, not only did they won convincingly.
Yep.
I think they win even more convincingly this week. I got to pick Ayden-Grifton.
Yep. Second
game on the slate, we have J.H. Rose at Southeast Raleigh. J.H. Rose comes into game 5-5. Southeast Raleigh 8-2. These two teams are no strangers to each other in the playoffs. Rose actually lost to Southeast Raleigh a couple years ago in the first round. The road hasn't necessarily been kind to Rose. Now they got another long road trip here. Not that they're not used to it, having to go to Wilmington for conference games, but they're struggling. It seems like offensively. They didn't score a touchdown in the second half against New Bern. That's after playing New Bern really tough here.
Exactly.
So it makes you kind of wonder about how well they're going to play on the road. I think this game will be pretty competitive, but I think I'm going to have to pick Southeast Raleigh. I think being at home and Rose's struggles on the road, I think you have to pick Southeast Raleigh.
I think you're right. I think you have to go with Southeast Raleigh. Rose is a team that, I've said it before, we still don't know what their identity is. They've had some really good efforts, and when you thought maybe they were going to turn the corner and be really good, then other times, like last week at New Bern, they couldn't seem to find the end zone. Really kind of struggling on offense. As you mentioned, I think Southeast Raleigh gets the win. Our next game is D.H. Conley at Cardinal Gibbons, and we talked about it all week. An unbelievably tough draw for Conley. They finished the season 8-3. Now, granted, they lost to a team they probably should have beat last week. South Central was a team that was struggling. Local rival South Central was obviously up for that game, pulled the upset. Now, whether that knocked Conley into this whatever bracket they're in right now, they're 8-3 and they're facing a 9-1 Cardinal Gibbons team at Cardinal Gibbons. That's a tough road, obviously, for Conley. Conley's been good. The offense has been stellar all year. The defense actually seemed to get a little bit better as the year went on. But man, I just don't know if I can pick them. I think I got to pick Cardinal Gibbons.
You know, it's. If you would have asked me before last week, I probably would have picked Conley, but they struggled so badly against South Central. They played much better in the second half, actually covered that game. Came down to a block kick in overtime.
Right.
But it's kind of funny, you look at a team that's 8-3 and they're the 6th seed, while North Pitt's 6-5 and they're a 5 seed.
I know.
If you look at the brackets, it's a brutal bracket that Conley has been put in. Again, I think it's with them playing on the road, it's going to be tough to get a win. Maybe they bounce back, but right now I think I have to pick Cardinal Gibbons. But I think that's going to be a really close game because other than last week, Conley hasn't had any problems scoring points. So, but I think I have to pick Cardinal Gibbons in this one. Last playoff game we're going to talk about will be North Pitt at Topsail. North Pitt 6-5 coming into this. Topsail 7-3. North Pitt's played all these teams really tough.
Yes.
The team they've lost to. They played Kinston tough. They played Goldsboro tough. You know, we're talking about I'm sorry, I said Goldsboro. I meant Tarboro tough. But as well as they played, if you don't get those wins, you end up on the road in the playoffs. So 6-5, they're going to go play a Topsail team that's kind of on a roll here. They've won 5 in a row.
Yeah.
This is one of those games, Tony and I were talking before we started filming, that this is one of those toss-up ones. It's probably the closest game of the week. I think I'm going to pick North Pitt to pull out the upset Topsail. I think this is where it pays off playing in that Eastern Plains Conference and playing tough teams, playing those Goldsboros, playing those, I'm sorry, I said Goldsboro again, playing those Kinstons, playing those Tarboros tight.
Right.
Going to make a big difference. I think they pull off the upset.
That's a good point. But it just seems to me that these are two teams that maybe are going in opposite directions. They did play all those teams close. As you mentioned, they all wound up being losses. Not all of them, but most of them wound up being losses, and that knocked them down to a number 5 seed. North Pitt's been a resilient team, though. They've surprised us numerous times this year. There have been several times when I know I've picked against them myself, and they wound up winning. I think I'm going to go with you on this one. I think the
Uh-huh.
Panthers will get the win. Topsail's 7-3, but I don't really know how tough their conference is. I would almost guarantee it's not as tough as North Pitt's conference.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, I'll pick the Panthers as well.
Well, thanks for watching. Check out Saturday's Daily Reflector for the results from playoff games, and hopefully we'll be with you next week if we have a couple of teams advance. If not, see you during basketball season.